hook. They say adamantium can cut through anything. They say Superman is untouchable. But what happens when legends collide? If you love deep breakdowns and cinematic showdowns, subscribe now. This one gets personal. Intro tease: two hunters, two myths. One question that has haunted every battlefield and every barroom debate across two worlds. Can Wolverine survive Superman's claws? Core story. It starts with a rumor. Not the kind that spreads in news cycles. The kind that creeps through alleys and mutant bars. A mercenary with a bone problem. A man named Logan, born in the wilds of Canada, remade by science, reborn with adamantium grafted to his skeleton. He called himself Wolverine. He had a healing factor that made him impossible to kill. He had bone claws that could slice through tanks. And then came the other rumor. A man from another planet, Kal-El, who lived as Clark Kent, a being who could move planets and melt mountains. The defender of Metropolis. A being whose skin shrugged off bullets and whose heart still beat for small human things. The universe is not tidy. Stories drift. A covert ops team hired Wolverine for one job. Infiltrate a black site where alien tech was stored. The target, a shard of kryptonite they wanted to weaponize. The job went sideways. The site belonged to a mercenary guild that had crossed lines. And at the center of their security, someone who answered to the symbol rather than a name. Superman arrived like a storm. Not because someone called for him, because he always comes. He found the vault breached. He found Logan standing over the shard. Tension hung in the air like ozone. Two predators measured one another. Wolverine didn't back down. He had seen gods before. He had survived wars and winters and laboratories. He had punched gods and walked away. His claws slid out, 3 flashes of silver in each hand. Adamantium, the metal that had become legend for a reason. Adamantium that could tear through armor. Adamantium that had once cut through Captain America's shield in some timelines. But Superman stood there, calm as snowfall. They exchanged words at first. Brief. Hard. Logan wasn't looking for a fight. He was looking for an exit. Clark wasn't looking for a fight either. He was looking for answers. But answers rarely come without questions. Then the world tilted. Something in the vault sparked. Security systems misfired. A stray pulse of energy hit the shield around the shard. The room filled with light. The shard pulsed. The shard sang. Suddenly, the vault was no longer a place but a trap. The ground quaked. Heavy metal doors slammed. The only exit sealed. Wolverine roared. He slashed at steel. His claws screamed. They bit and tore, but the doors held. Superman tried to pry them open. His fingers dug. The metal strained. Nothing. Panic is a new face on gods. It slid across Superman's features like a brief shadow. That was the moment the question became real. If his heat vision could burn through moons, why would he be stopped by a mere lock? Because this lock was made from alien alloy keyed to the shard. Because kryptonite reacted to his cells differently now. Because power meets resistance and resistance teaches things about limits. Wolverine circled. He grew impatient. He lunged, claws forward. He aimed for what he thought was the weak point, Superman's arm. The first strike landed with a scream of metal on skin. Adamantium met Kryptonian flesh. Time stretched. The sound of contact was like thunder in a cave. Flesh did not part like paper. Sparks flew. Logan's eyes widened. He pulled back. There was a nick, tiny. A scar that shone like a silver thread across Superman's suit. Not deep, not fatal, but it was there. Superman didn't stumble. He didn't fall. He tasted blood, his own, and the world held its breath. They traded blows like men playing punctuation to a sentence written by fate. Claws scored, heat vision seared. Fists collided with the force of freight trains. Wolverine's healing factor stitched him between strikes. Superman's invulnerability shrugged off everything that didn't touch the weak spot. They danced a brutal ballet. Between strikes, they spoke. Felt human then. Wolverine's voice was low, rough. "You gonna stand there or bleed?" he asked. Superman's reply was softer than people expected. I didn't come to fight you, Logan. I came to stop that shard. Before the analysis, there was a moment, a quiet second where both men understood something raw. Superman had spent his life protecting citadels like the Fortress of Solitude, but he'd also spent nights in diners saving people who could barely afford their next coffee. Wolverine had spent his life running from ghosts, stitching new scars over old ones. In that split second, they were not myths but men, tired and dangerous. That human moment made the next strike feel like a betrayal. Analysis. Here's where the science of myth gets messy. Adamantium is nearly unbreakable. Wolverine's claws are lethal. But Superman's physiology isn't normal. His skin and cells are supercharged under a yellow sun. Small cuts may appear. Tiny nicks can score. But the difference between a nick and a kill is the difference between legend and lab work. Wolverine can cut. He can hurt. Can he kill? Not easily. Unless he finds the precise weakness. And that weakness is not always skin deep. Kryptonite. Red sun radiation. Extreme psychic assault. Even an adamantium edge needs leverage. Weapon matched to tissue. Force matched to angle. And sometimes fate matched to cruelty. Ending tease plus channel subscription. The Vault sirens wailed as backup robots approached. Logan and Superman had to decide in seconds. Trust, fight, or something in between. What happens when claws meet God? Will a scratch be enough to change a legend? Or will another secret buried in that vault tilt the scale? If you want the answer, and a fight that reminds you why legends fear the dark, hit subscribe and ring the bell. We'll come back and finish this. We'll see whether Wolverine's adamantium claws write the last line, or whether the man beneath the cape still holds the final page. The alarms were deafening. Red light spun across the vault walls. Metal guards poured from the corridors like mechanical soldiers. And in the middle of it, Superman and Wolverine standing side by side for the first time. But trust doesn't come easy to men like them. One was built to save the world. The other was built to survive it. Superman's voice cut through the chaos. We don't have time for this, Logan. We need to contain that kryptonite shard before he could finish, one of the drones fired a kryptonite-tipped round. It hit his chest. The impact wasn't fatal, but it was enough. His skin smoked and he dropped to one knee. Wolverine snarled. Guess that shiny skin ain't so shiny now. He leaped forward, claws flashing. Adamantium shredded the drone into pieces before it could reload. Sparks showered the room. Superman staggered to his feet, eyes glowing crimson. He unleashed his heat vision, melting through a wall of metal soldiers in one sweep. The blast was pure sunlight in motion. But something wasn't right. His heat vision dimmed. His strength faltered. That shard wasn't just emitting radiation. It was pulsing, reacting to his very heartbeat. Wolverine could smell it. The sweat, the blood, the faint burn of alien power mixing with weakness. You're losing juice, bub. That green rock's eaten you alive. Superman steadied himself. I can handle it. Logan scoffed. Sure you can. Just like every other guy who said he was invincible. They didn't have time for arguments. The shard's containment unit cracked open. A pulse of kryptonite energy surged across the vault, shorting out lights and melting steel. Superman shielded Logan with his body, taking the blast full force. His cape ignited. His skin blistered. For the first time, Wolverine saw the Man of Steel bleed. That's enough heroics, Boy Scout, Logan growled. He shoved Superman aside and stalked toward the shard. You want it contained? Fine. I'll do it the old-fashioned way. He plunged his claws straight into the reactor housing. The energy howled around him, sizzling against adamantium. His body convulsed, but his healing factor fought back. Superman reached out weakly. Logan, stop. It'll kill you. Been killed before. Wolverine grunted. Never sticks. For 10 agonizing seconds, the world was nothing but light and pain. Then silence. When the smoke cleared, Wolverine stood hunched over, claws still buried in molten metal. His body was scorched, but alive. Superman approached carefully. You just absorbed enough energy to level a city. Wolverine coughed out a laugh. Yeah, don't recommend it. They stared at each other, two survivors of impossible odds. The kryptonite shard was neutralized. The vault was quiet, but the silence didn't last. A slow metallic clap echoed from the shadows. Out stepped a figure draped in black armor, Lex Luthor. Impressive, Luthor said, smiling coldly. You both did exactly what I needed. You weakened him, Logan, and you drained the shard's energy right into his bloodstream. Wolverine's eyes narrowed. You set us up. Luthor nodded. Superman needed a catalyst. Something to push his physiology into crisis. Your claws, his cells, kryptonite radiation. Perfect experiment. Superman tried to move, but his body trembled. The kryptonite energy in his veins glowed faintly beneath his skin. His powers were unstable, flickering like dying sunlight. Luthor turned toward Wolverine. You're the wild card, aren't you? The man who can't die. Tell me, how much adamantium would it take to cut through a Kryptonian heart? Wolverine didn't answer. He simply extended his claws. Snicked. Let's find out. He charged. Luthor's mech suit fired plasma rounds, but Wolverine dodged, ripping through armor and wires. Superman staggered forward, trying to help, but every step hurt. Still, when Luthor's plasma cannon turned toward Wolverine, Superman threw himself in front of it. The blast hit him point blank. The chamber exploded. The shockwave threw Wolverine across the room. He crashed into debris, claws still extended. When he looked up, Superman was buried under collapsed steel. Wolverine limped over, tearing at rubble with both hands. Come on, blue boy. Don't make me dig your grave. He pulled the last slab free, and there he was. Superman, bruised, his eyes faintly glowing red. Alive. You're stubborn, Logan said. You're reckless, Superman replied. Guess that makes us even. They stood together in the wreckage. Luthor was gone. The vault lay in ruins. The kryptonite shard was fused into Superman's bloodstream, changing him in ways neither could yet understand. As the ceiling cracked and sunlight poured in, Superman looked up. The warmth hit his face, and for the first time since the battle began, he smiled. I think I can heal. Wolverine grinned through blood. Told ya, bub. Sun fixes everything. But deep down, both men knew something had changed. Kryptonite had touched him. His invulnerability wasn't absolute anymore. And the world was about to find out. Because somewhere above the clouds, satellites turned. Sensors blinked. Someone else was watching. Someone who wanted that kryptonite in Superman's veins. And this time, Wolverine wouldn't just be his rival. He'd be his only ally. The sun rose over the Arctic. Its light danced across ice and glass. The fortress of solitude stood silent, half shattered from the battle that brought them here. Inside, Superman lay on a bed of crystal, still as stone. His skin glowed faintly green beneath the surface. The kryptonite wasn't leaving his body. It was spreading. Wolverine stood nearby, pacing. He hated hospitals. He hated waiting. And this was worse. You ever stop being invincible? He muttered. And suddenly everyone forgets you're still human underneath. Superman's breathing was shallow. The warmth of the yellow sun filled the room, but his cells didn't respond. They'd been poisoned, changed. The kryptonite had bonded with his DNA, and every second it grew stronger. Batman's voice crackled through the comm line. Logan, you can't help him. Kryptonite exposure at that level is fatal. Pull back. Not my style, Wolverine grunted. You think I came this far to let him rot? He turned to the consoles, holograms flickered. Data, molecular patterns, gene maps. Too many words. Too much tech. Logan wasn't a scientist, but he was a survivor, and survivors adapt. He stared at his hands. The adamantium claws that had caused the wound still dripped faint green energy. That's when it hit him. My claws cut him. They're the only thing that's pierced him. Maybe they're the only thing that can fix him. He wasn't sure how, but sometimes instinct beats science. Logan sliced a shallow line across his palm. His healing factor closed it instantly, but for that second, his blood shimmered part human, part metal. He knew it was insane, but insanity was something he'd lived through 100 times. He drove one claw into his hand again and pressed it against Superman's wound. Energy arced through the room. The kryptonite veins lit up like lightning. Superman gasped. The air around them trembled. The kryptonite in his blood reacted to the adamantium. The metals clashed, fused, and stabilized. For a brief, terrifying second, it looked like both of them would burn alive. Then silence. Superman opened his eyes. The green glow faded. His skin returned to its normal hue. He looked up at Logan. "What did you do?" "Gave you a bit of my bad habit," Logan said with a smirk. "Guess I'm contagious." Superman stood slowly. The kryptonite was gone, but something else had taken its place. His cells shimmered faintly with a silvery tint. His body was now laced with microscopic traces of adamantium. Not enough to weigh him down, but enough to harden him further. "You just made me stronger," Superman whispered. "Yeah, well, don't start growing claws," Wolverine muttered. They both chuckled, but deep down, both knew what it meant. Superman was no longer just Kryptonian. He was something else. And as fate would have it, they'd need that new strength sooner than either expected. A tremor rippled through the fortress. The ice cracked. The sky outside went dark. From orbit, Lex Luthor's warship descended, powered by alien tech stolen from the vault. He had fused his armor with fragments of kryptonite and traces of Superman's DNA. "You think you can cheat evolution?" Luthor's voice thundered through the fortress. "You think a god and a beast can rewrite nature? I'll show you perfection." The roof exploded. Luthor hovered in, encased in a glowing exosuit, veins pulsing with green light. Superman stepped forward, fists clenched. "Lex, don't do this." "You already did," Luthor sneered. Wolverine popped his claws. "Guess it's round 2, bub." The fight that followed was chaos. Luthor's energy blasts cut through the fortress like lightning. Superman deflected most, but the radiation still hurt. Wolverine tore through armor plating, leaping from crystal to crystal. But Luthor was faster now, smarter. He anticipated Superman's every move, adapting with each strike. When Superman punched him, the armor absorbed the kinetic energy and redirected it as plasma. When Wolverine slashed, the nanites sealed the cuts instantly. "You can't win," Luthor taunted. "I'm evolution perfected. You're outdated myths." Superman glanced at Logan. "Then maybe it's time we prove why myths survive." They attacked together, Superman driving Luthor upward with a punch that cracked the sound barrier, Wolverine riding the shockwave, claws aimed for the chest plate. The final strike was pure timing. Superman's heat vision cut through the armor shield, just as Wolverine's claws pierced the reactor core. Luthor screamed. The suit imploded, sending a blinding flash across the Arctic sky. When the light faded, Luthor was gone. The fortress was ruined. And the two warriors stood amidst the ruins, breathing hard, steam rising from their wounds. Superman looked at the torn sky, sunlight bleeding through the clouds. "You know, Logan, if you hadn't cut me, I might not have survived any of this." "Yeah," Wolverine replied, lighting a cigar. "Funny how that works. Sometimes the only way to save something is to scar it first." Superman smiled faintly. "You ever think about staying? The world could use someone like you." "Nah," Wolverine said, turning away. "Too many rules. Too much sunlight." He started walking toward the horizon, cape whipping behind him like smoke. "You ever need me again, Boy Scout? You know where to find me." Superman watched him go, then turned toward the rising sun. For the first time in his life, he felt human. For the first time in Logan's life, he'd helped a god remember his heart. The world would never know how close it came to losing both. But in the quiet between battles, Legends don't need headlines. They just need scars to prove they lived. And somewhere in that light, a truth lingered. Even adamantium can bend before hope.